A quick update, guys, on the Project Octavia. What seems like the differential has decided to disassemble itself inside the gearbox. Driving along one night, fifth gear, just driving normally, and all of a sudden, bang, and then broken sounding things happening from the gearbox, and then occasionally another like bang, bang, bang. And the car would be like lurching. So I've limped the car back to the house. I've jacked the car up with the one wheel on the ground. I've had the one wheel in the air, turned it, and sure enough, it sounds broken. Something in the gearbox sounds broken when you turn the wheel. And occasionally the wheel will just like lock against something. And if you turn it back, maybe you can sort of release it again. Bit of Googling later, turns out that 5-speed gearboxes, the 02J gearboxes, Volkswagen, have a design flaw. There's a small pin that holds in the central pin that goes through the middle of the differential that holds the, what do you call them, the planetary gears. Those pins break, snap off, it allows the shaft to move, and then the shaft slides out and smashes into the case.
There we go. Looks like there's only about half of it though. Now that it's out, we can pull this pin out entirely. There we go. So there's the rest of the pin sheared off.
I haven't opened the gearbox yet, but that sounds like what has happened to this particular gearbox. Some people say that the crown wheel rivets can be weak and that the crown wheel can come off, but in this case I don't think that's the problem, because the car would drive normally. It feels like it would drive normally. It's got drive, it goes in all the gears, no problem. It's just that banging sound occasionally and just a general fucking sound of something not happy. So the original plan was to get a replacement gearbox, a replacement 5-speed gearbox. The ones for the Octavia, that specific gearbox, and the ones that have the similar gear ratios, they're quite pricey. Looking at, from what I've seen, the cheapest one I found was $350, and that was sitting in the middle of a field, it looked like. So I wasn't too plussed with that, but I did find some diesel gearboxes which looked in good condition and were considerably cheaper, around 150. I was definitely tempted by the diesel gearbox. To be honest, I've been thinking about putting one on the car for a long time, because the gears just seem a bit short, especially in 5th gear. Like the car accelerates, and it feels like in 5th gear it accelerates like it's in 3rd. It just pulls that gear no problem. So like I wouldn't have minded an overdrive gear. So I was looking at the diesel gearboxes. Like I said, found one. Spoke to the old specialist that I entrust to look after the car. He's a VAG specialist, does 1.8 turbos, TFSI, tuning, fabrication, etc. And he said, look, this is going to cost around $450 if you want to do what you want to do. Because I said, if I get this diesel gearbox, I want to take it apart and I want to go into the diff and fix that pin problem that it's got. I don't want the same thing happening with another 02J gearbox. I said, okay, all in, that's going to be around $450, and he wants to change the rivets on the crown wheel as well. I'd never heard of that being a problem before, so I'm not sure. But anyway, that was the one possibility. But on YouTube, I also stumbled across a video while I was looking at 02J problems of a guy that was swapping 02S gearboxes into the 1.8 turbo onto the 1.8 turbo 20 valve engine. Now he started off taking the internals from the 02S and putting them into the 02J housing. For me, that's not an option, probably, because I think that pin has come out of the diff and it's probably damaged the casing on the inside somewhere. But recently, I think in May of 24, he did another video, the O2S conversion, the easy way. And he says in that video, he just took the complete O2S gearbox and just bolted it up to the 02J, bolted it straight up to the 20 valve engine with no changes at all, just bolted straight on, no changes internally. But what he said he did have to do is put another bracket for the gear selector mechanisms on top of the gearbox. It's not in exactly the same place, which looks like a fucking nothing job, easy. And the other problem with doing that is that the O2S doesn't have a speed signal. The O2J, the speed signal goes into the gearbox and is turned by a little spiral gear on the differential. The O2S doesn't have that hole in the gearbox. But also in that video, he shows how you can do it by changing the EPROM in the ECU to change it from taking the speed off the diff to taking the speed from the ABS sensor, which looks like a huge win. I don't have the cable that he uses in that video to do the programming, but nevertheless I've taken the gamble and I've ordered an O2S gearbox anyway. I'm 90% sure I can get it working, but if not, I didn't pay a lot for the O2S gearbox, so we can chalk it down to experience if it doesn't work out. So that's where we are at the moment. That gearbox is not going to get to me soon. We're looking at probably a month to get that gearbox, so that car is going to be off the road for a month at least, until the gearbox comes, until the cable comes. And I think while we've got the gearbox off again, because we've just done the clutch on it, a year ago, probably going to do the downpipe as well. I mean, it's been bothering me. The downpipe does need to be done on that Octavia. The downpipe on it at the moment looks like a 63mm, which is nowhere near big enough, in my opinion, for a downpipe. So I think we're going to be changing it to 89mm downpipe, and we'll see what that does. Even if it just gives the car the engine an easier life by being able to breathe easier, then it's going to be money well spent, I think. I don't know how much money it's going to cost. It's not a complicated downpipe, so hopefully they don't charge me an arm and a leg for it. I'm also going to change the dampers on it. I said in a previous video I've put Sachs stock replacement dampers on the front, and they're too soft. I think they're just too soft. I could put Bilsteins on it, but I think they're going to be around €160 each. But Sachs do an uprated damper, which is like 60 or 80 euro. So I'm going to do that one. I'm going to try the Sachs. It's going to be a gamble, I know. It might not be stiff enough, but it needs to be done on the car. It's not great, the front end. It moves too much. So, if the Sachs don't work out, it's going to be expensive. An expensive mistake because of the labour to put it on, and obviously the cost of the dampers themselves, and then the cost of the labour again then to put another set of dampers on. But I'm prepared to give Sachs a chance on it. And if that doesn't work out, I guess it's just going to have to be coilovers, because I'm not really into the Bilstein. I definitely don't want to spend 160 per damper on Bilstein, and then for it still not to be right. That would be a disaster. I'm going to change the bushes in the back as well. They look a bit past their best, and the car feels like it wants to steer from the rear on turning. It seems to take an angle at the rear, which is very disconcerting. I'm not sure if it's supposed to do that, but I'll find out if I put new bushes in there, hopefully. Put some heat shielding on the exhaust manifold. I've done a video for that, link in the video description, so that's much better. But yeah, that's it for the Octavia project. It's getting pretty close to finished, I think. Anyway, so that's enough rambling, guys. That's the Octavia project update. subscribe to the channel. That's it for now. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you again in the next video.